And welcome back to the channel, everybody. Welcome back to a new video. And today I'm going to talk about my buddy Racerx. Paul, yes, this video is for you and everyone else watching. And I am going to preface anything I say with this one thing. I am a Racerx fan. I love the guy. He's one of the most quality human beings we've got in the automotive community. And I respect him tremendously. And that's the most suck up I'm going to do, because I don't want anybody to think in any way that I am crapping on somebody I tremendously like, respect, and frankly consider a friend on the other side of America. He's a solid guy, a car lover, and has been an inspiration to me since I first started my channel and watched him doing rides in his Hellcat and Uber drives in his Hellcat and all that fun stuff that he was doing back in the day. I absolutely just have nothing negative to say about the guy. But here's the deal. Buddy, Paul, on your live yesterday, and by the time this video goes up, maybe a couple days ago, but on your last live where you were going to, and you did, address whether you were paid to say nice things about the Dodge, I feel like, and maybe it's just me, I felt like there was a lot of what you said was landing on my shoulders, TK's shoulders, Butter's shoulders. Yet I also am cognizant of the fact that I've read the comments when you're saying nice things about that Daytona, and I've read the downright disrespectful, nasty, and frankly horrible things that people have said to you about being a shill and being a salesman for Dodge and all this stuff. And I've even, and I think many of you have probably seen this, I've even, not that you need me to, but stood up for you in those comments and battled with those people, because I absolutely think that it's unfair for somebody to accuse you of something like that when I know that you were not paid by Dodge. I know that they did not hand you a check and say, please say nice things about this car. I know that your style here on YouTube is to be the consummate neutral professional, and I don't believe there's any weird side motivation to get something from Dodge or anyone else. I do believe that what Rich Rebuilds said on our live, which I would have loved to have had you included in that, but it wasn't my live, I didn't set it up. But when he said the social pressure that takes place when you are wined and dined, flown in, and put up in a very nice hotel is palpable. You get to sit with the designers, the builders of these cars, the engineers, and just like you wouldn't go to someone's house who toiled over an amazing meal, even though it's not something that's to your liking, there's no way you would bash the daylights out of that meal before, during, or after. You wouldn't do that. You wouldn't talk crap before you had the meal, and you wouldn't talk crap during the meal, and you certainly wouldn't talk crap after the meal, because the social pressure is pretty powerful. With that said, I do agree with you on this, that no question there is a place for being open-minded in the car community where we're not just looking to be negative. But I also wanted to make sure that I address for everybody who's also commented in my comments the opposite and beat me up for being negative about the Daytona. They've trashed me. I've seen them trash TK and Butter for being negative, and other YouTubers for being so negative about the Daytona that there's no winning in this situation. If you're a professional, very respectful, non-negative, just talk about the car for what it is person, that's a position you take, you're going to get beat up. If you bash it, you're going to get beat up. Either way, someone's getting beat up in the comments. But where I differ in my opinion and have to address a few things you said, which was, no, they didn't expect you to talk nice about the car. Let's just be clear. Even I would have had a challenge Had I been invited, had TK been invited, had Butter been invited, and there were smaller YouTubers there, as you mentioned in your live, I would have had trouble being negative. Anybody who watches my dealer visit videos knows that when I'm in those dealers, I am not a nasty person. I am not walking in there and trashing the hell out of their products in their home. It's not something anyone with any level of respect would do. But I want to make it clear that what I'm doing here is simply sharing the honest, unfiltered truth and opinion that I have on that car based on information I've gleaned from Dodge themselves, as well as the other reviewers that were taken on a beautiful trip and maybe might have been under a little bit of social pressure, which would be totally understandable and natural. I did see that on one of the videos for one of the reviewers that the car broke. It broke while they were driving it and they had to switch cars. That's a true fact that happened. Something that maybe it was an anomaly and it didn't happen in any of the other cars. I think that's clear for everybody to see. There are cars, Daytonas, that are bricked, that aren't able to get delivered. It was significantly delayed. I think the fact and the truth of this was they kept saying it was coming out, and then it didn't come out. I also believe that Tavares was the brain behind this ridiculous thing, and the strategy behind it as a business person I've shared, which I believe I'm qualified to do, even though I've never driven the car, that their strategy was amiss. It was a huge failure in shutting off the Hemi cars, some of the most popular cars ever sold by that company in the history of that company, and then having nothing for the entire year of 2024 that any of us would want, and then launching and forcing an EV down our throat for the Dodge enthusiasts, and then trying to convince us that it's an adequate replacement for our Hemi cars. It's not. Neither is cooking a cheeseburger in the microwave versus cooking a cheeseburger on the barbecue. It's not the same. I don't want to eat a cheeseburger made in a microwave. Yes, it's faster, and yes, it's edible, but it is certainly not the same. I could literally take my old-fashioned smoker that I make my cocktails with and smoke that meat that's cooked in the microwave, make it taste like it was on a barbecue. Tantamount to a fake exhaust, if you will, and it's still not the same. There's something different about it. And I believe that it's okay, even though I have not been availed the opportunity to drive those cars yet. I've sat in them, I've touched them, I've seen them in person, and I will say for the 9,000th time, I think it is a beautiful design, it is a great design, and it would have been a hit had they rolled out an ICE version first, and then worked their way into the EV world as an option, an alternative for those who want that kind of thing, rather than jamming it down our throats. I think I'm also qualified as a buyer of 8 of these Dodge Hemi cars and over $500,000 in money spent in the last 5 years on these cars, on almost every single version they've made, to be able to say that they screwed up when they priced this thing. The faster version, which, as you mentioned in your video, is just a software change and maybe a little bit of small things, a wing on the back, maybe some brake differences or something, but to charge upwards of $85,000 for an EV that doesn't have features of the cheaper version electric car in a Tesla. And I also get that when you mentioned, I wanted to address this too, respectfully, but it doesn't have full self-driving, and who would want that anyways? Here's where I'm at. It would be nice to have. Hell, why would we have adaptive cruise control on a Hellcat? Makes no sense, right? Why would we have cruise control at all on a Hellcat? It's an enthusiast car. It's a fun car. Because driving it as a daily, driving it to work, it's kind of nice to go ahead and have it in street mode and just enjoy the car cruising down the freeway and maybe push the gas mileage up to 16, 17 miles per gallon when I'm not out there ripping and tearing and having a great time with it. And that's where the Tesla Model 3 comes in. But no, the Tesla Model 3 does not look as good. It certainly doesn't have the same spirit, appearance, and soul that Dodge Daytona has. But it does everything else that it does, and it does it way better for way less money. So I believe the comparison is absolutely valid. And I will end with just saying, to say that if you haven't driven it yet, you have no right to say anything about that car. Listen, that's easy for anyone who has driven it to say to the rest of us. And I will concede right here on video today that I know that if I drove that Dodge Daytona EV, whether it be the RT or the Scat Pack, that I would be thoroughly impressed with the experience. I will concede that. Here's how I know. When I drove, probably not a good comparison, the Porsche Taycan S, Turbo S, the first EV, I think, next to a Tesla that I've ever driven. Wife and I had our faces ripped off in that thing. It was nuts. It was superior to almost any gas car I've ever driven when it comes to its just raw performance out of the gate from a stoplight. And it was nice on the inside, and it had cool fake sounds and everything else. But I didn't buy one because I don't want a damn EV. I don't want a cheeseburger cooked in the microwave. I've driven a Tesla Plaid and had my face ripped off, and it's faster than anything I've ever driven. It's way faster than my Lamborghini Huracan. Smoke it, runs circles around me. But it's not the same. It's a cheeseburger cooked in the microwave. I don't want a cheeseburger cooked in the microwave. I want a barbecue cheeseburger. Now I'm getting hungry, everybody. So even though I didn't get to drive the car, I'm willing to concede that no question it's going to drive wonderfully. It's going to drive great. It's not going to be as fast as some of the other EVs, but it's going to be faster than a Hellcat. It's going to be faster and probably have better traction than my Scat Pack even. And it's going to outperform in plenty of ways the ICE versions of those cars. But I don't need to drive one to be able to formulate an opinion that I am sharing with the world, that based on the metrics that Dodge has shared, the reviews that I have watched, that a 5,800 pound enormous car with inferior range, inferior 0 to 60, inferior top speed, and no, I'm not going to be doing 200 miles an hour, but it just is inferior, and so many other things that are inferior about that car. I don't have to have driven it to be able to point out that it shouldn't be, let's just say, $65,000 to $85,000 delivered to market a year later, meaning a 2024 is now finally being sold at dealerships as a 2024 in 2025, that the failure by Dodge and Stellantis is something that we all could and should speak on because it's interesting. It's newsworthy, and it's just downright almost comedic, if it wasn't sad, that they actually believed that they can take a guy who bought 8 of these things last 5 years and spent, let's just say, 4 of those years, or I don't know, more, selling Dodges to people. I think I am, no matter how small my channel is, I am single-handedly responsible for talking downright thousands of people into buying these Hemi cars over the years, because I sat here and sold how much I loved them for years and years and years until this stupidity came. So I wouldn't call what I've been doing negative or being negative or negativity. It's just being real. And if being real is negative, then so be it. And yes, I would agree with you. The Hemi's had issues. You get the Hemi tick. You could beat up on any car. But in this case, the dummies thought we were going to eat this thing up. Someone somewhere with a lot of degrees on their wall and a humongous paycheck decided we're going to feed these guys cheeseburgers made in microwaves and they're going to eat them up. And that was just downright stupid. And for that, yes, they get to have guys like me, TK, Butter, and so many others say, I'm not going to get caught selling that thing. I'm not. I will tell you what's good about it when and if I drive the damn thing. And if it was 50 grand, I will tell you right now, my happy ass would be standing at the dealership right now for the Scat Pack. Let's say even $55,000, $58,000, like a wide body Scat was. My ass would probably go buy one just to feature it on YouTube and use it as a daily because frankly, my Scat Packs cost me a fortune to drive as a daily. But at $65,000 to $85,000, they missed the mark. They missed the mark. And that forces a ton of mass criticism. Something else you had said, sorry to keep going here, was that the car was appointed with all the features you would expect in a car like this. The problem is it's not a BMW. It's not a Mercedes. It didn't need a lot of the stuff that it probably has. It certainly didn't need the fanciest interior. It needed a friggin' Hemi and it needed a price where people could afford to buy it. So they way overbuilt it as far as the design and they way overbuilt the interior, I believe. And that caused them to have to drive this price to the ceiling. But again, it's got a crappy charging network, crappy range. And by the way, you know, if it's a performance car, people are never going to get the range that they say they're going to get with their foot in it, which means you're going to have a car doing 150 miles in range if you're lucky. And you're going to have to be sitting at a charging station, staring at yourself in the mirror while I drive by in my Scat Pack. So with that, Racerx, love you, respect you, and I appreciate you doing the lives. And I get it. You're not a negative guy. You're not going to be. And no, I'll tell everybody here, you weren't paid. Does Dodge give us, when they like us, do they give us stuff like, yes, you might get an allocation, or you might get to go to an event at their cost? Absolutely. Is that being paid? Some people would say it is. Considering that one guy kept asking questions, you're live, why didn't some critical YouTubers, very critical YouTubers, get invited? Well, maybe because they knew that we're not going to change, we're not going to be nice, and it's going to be downright excruciating for us to deal with that social pressure. But they did spend money, lots of money, sending a lot of folks out there. And no, that's not paying them, but I never got the offer. No, my feelings aren't hurt, maybe just a little bit. But considering my content, I didn't really expect to get that phone call. So with that, love you, Racerx. Keep doing those lives. Keep doing that quality content. You know I love you and respect you, but I just had to address these things. I'm going to be negative when it's time to be negative. I'm going to be positive when it's time to be positive. And I promise you, when I drive that Daytona, I'm probably going to love every bit of how it drives, but I'm not going to freaking buy one, just like you told everybody last night. You ain't buying one either. Bring back the Hemi, long live the V8, or at least give me that twin turbo i6 and let me experience it. Let me try that thing out. That I'm open to. Take care, everybody. See you in the next one. Bye-bye.